I don't know if I'm ready or not. I don't care. I'm pushing the button. Am I live? Yep. Live on YouTube. That's what counts. Line up a couple more things here. I think we'll be good to go. I think this is the way it works. A 1 and a 2. From the studio in the... Wait a minute. No, stop that stuff. I got something else to play here. Oh. From the... Can you guess where we are? From the poultry tent at the North Carolina State Fair on the west side of Raleigh, at the foot of Mount Belzoni. Okay, now wait a minute. Got to get back to this here. And from the studio in the bonus room above the garage, on the north side of Cary, the other foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the Triangle Talk Show. Gotta punch that thing up. When we do this, it is, I can do this. There we go. It is episode 32, basically a public service announcement show all the way through. October 17th, 2018. I'm me. I'm me. For real. I'm really me. Now I'm really me and I can prove it. We're safely back from the beach. Did you see the screw up I did in episode 31? Let me get rid of the title here for a second. If I can figure out how to run the computer once again. Apologize to the audio audience. What I've got is a still frame from the YouTube version of last week's show from down at the beach, Holden Beach, episode 31, the vacation beach week. Ours, not his. What I want you to get a careful look at is the date. October 8th, 9018. Yes, that's baked in. I can't change that. That's part of history. October 8th, 9018. I'll be doing shows for thousands of years. Well, hundreds anyway, I guess. I can't do the math in my head. All right. So this is episode 32. I've got the date correct now. October 17th, 2018. I'm me, for real. This is not the official ID. This is the television ID, Gary Pierce. And you get the idea. Okay, still stuff to line up here. So I know what I'm doing. There we go. The thing about the I'm me for real is I got my real ID this morning. Cindy had an appointment. My wife, Cindy, had an appointment yesterday. She did one of those appointment things and knew that she'd be able to get in, at least suspected that she'd be able to get in without a big, long wait. We've been hearing tales of doom and gloom and giant waits to be able to get a real ID or get anything done at the DMV that you had to do at the office. And, people waiting all day. There were stories in the paper, stories on TV. Get there at 7 o'clock in the morning, wait for hours and hours, and you could still get in. So Cindy had an appointment yesterday at 8:30, and she came back at about 9:30, and I was going to say, well, you didn't have the right documentation. And she said, no, she's done. There wasn't anybody there. The DMV was pretty much empty, at least at the Cary DMV office on the Maynard Loop that we go to here. So I pulled my stuff together this morning and got my butt over there. I got about 9 o'clock. There were 3 people in the waiting room. And As I was sitting down, about 5 or 6 more people came in, but it was not a long wait. You probably sat there for about 10 or more or 15 minutes at most before my number got called and went up to do the stuff. So I pulled all my ID stuff together. It's a little confusing. Let me show the video folks what the ID requirements are. Basically 3: identity and date of birth. If you're a citizen, identity and date of birth. You need 1 document that shows that. Social security number. You need 1 document that shows that. And if you're from out of the country, you need a document that shows your legal status in the U.S. And North Carolina residency, you need 2 documents that show that. So let's look at a couple of the quick details. Under the identity and age, a birth certificate will work, and a passport will work. Or a real ID, but almost nobody has that because it's just getting started now. So birth certificate or passport, a valid unexpired passport, and technically, I guess, a valid unexpired birth certificate. So I have the birth certificate. It is old, barely legible because I'm old. Next week I'll be 69. I'm 68 and 11 3/4 So I'm old. The birth certificate is flimsy. It's hard to read. So I took my passport. I got one of those. Let's see. The social security number, that almost could be tricky. A social security card, which I was surprised I could not find. Couldn't find my social security card. I thought I had it in a file here, and it wasn't. It's probably in a safe deposit box at the bank. I wasn't going to run and go get that. A 1099 tax form, as long as it's got your full social security on it, is good. A W-2, something you get tax time, those are good. Payroll records with your full name and full social security number, they'd be okay. I don't know what a DD-214 is. Oh, it's not acceptable anyway. So those are the acceptable items. Your social security card, a 1099 tax form, W-2 or a payroll record. And I dug out a 1099. I don't get payroll records. I haven't gotten payroll records for a few years because I'm retired. Before I was retired, I worked for myself. I've been self-employed for 15 years. And in the rare occasion when I could actually pay myself something, I made out a W-2. But I made it. What did that prove? I made it myself. They probably would have accepted it. I pulled out a 1099 from a bank with interest payments or something on it. They had to scan that, look at it very carefully because it didn't say exactly what they were expecting. I think I probably get a 1099 from Social Security. I don't know. I scan all those things in. I don't want to collect a lot of paper. So I scan all those things in, and then I shred them. And I don't know whether they would have accepted a printout of something that I had scanned or not. But I happened to find an old 1099 from 2011. I don't know if they looked at that. But it had my full Social Security number on it, and it had the address. And so I guess I was good to go. Let's see, what's the hesitation here is I've lost the cursor on the screen. There we go. So got the identity, got the date of birth, got the Social Security number. If you've changed your name, and this is mostly going to be for women who have gotten married or divorced, or married and then divorced, but there's other people who have changed their names. You'll need documentation of that. And then North Carolina residency, 2 documents of that. There's a lot of different documents that can show residency. Any document issued by the state of North Carolina or a county or a city in North Carolina or the federal government that's got your address on it and your name. I'll take that. Vehicle registration card, insurance policy, title, voter precinct card. Interesting that they call it voter precinct card because we don't have voter ID cards. Because we don't have voter ID. Quite. Yet. Military orders or military documents, utility bill, cable bill, housing lease or contract, mortgage statement, property, income tax statement. I think I took a property tax statement. I took something that I had copied, scanned, shredded, printed out another one. They didn't need to see that. Evidently, I'd had enough stuff already. Pre-printed financial statement, school records, letter from a homeless shelter. There are people that have no residence, no address, because they're living in a shelter. If you're homeless and are living under a bridge, you might have trouble proving that you live here. That could be trouble. So anyway, got all that stuff done, and took a new picture. It's a terrible mugshot. It looks like this. Here, no glasses. And once again, the audio audience is missing this, and I can't quite see what it looks like because I can't see my monitor without glasses on. I didn't have headphones around my neck. Like that. So I'll have a terrible picture on my driver's license for a few years. They offered to take another picture, but I said, no, that's terrible. I said, that's not going to get any better. All right, so not busy this week. The lady that was taking care of me said that she suspected, because I asked, we've heard that it's a mob scene here, and she seemed a little confused by the reference, but I'm sure that they're familiar with it. She said it's state fair. The people are going to the fair. It was a mob scene last week. A little less of a mob scene because kids are back in school. And they were saying that on the news, that kids would be going back to school, and all the kids getting their driver's licenses and taking care of stuff before they had to go to school was part of the reason why it was so crowded. But the main thing they thought was the state fair. And so they expect it to be busy again next week. So if you want to take care of your real ID, you better go now. I mean, right now, this week. Do you know what you need real ID for, just to round out the public service announcement part of this program? It's going to be required in 2021 or 22, or maybe before that. Oh, gosh, I should look it up. Two interfederal buildings and airports, few places where you need ID. A passport would do if you want to carry your passport around with you all the time. I don't know if the little passport card that you can get would do the job. That's good for getting in and out of Canada and Mexico. I got one of those when I renewed my passport. Maybe that would do. But it's a driver's license with more stringent identification requirements, and for most of us, it will be getting in and out of some buildings, federal buildings, and going through security at the airport. That's what it would be for. I don't know why there was a big rush now. They were saying, do it now, 2018, so you're not caught short and in a big mob just before they become required. And so what did we get? We got a big mob in 2018 at the DMV offices, at least in the more urban areas. Probably, I've seen stories, not so bad in some of the rural areas. So some of them got popular too. So do you wait 4 hours here, or do you drive 2 hours out somewhere, get it in a few minutes, and then drive 2 hours back? Well, if you do that, either way, take your earbuds, listen to the Triangle Talk Show podcast. It'll keep you entertained. Or some other podcast while you're waiting. Go now. Avoid the rush. I got some alternate titles for the show, I guess. State fair. It's just me being clever. In fact, I think that almost qualifies for clickbait. Maybe not quite. State, fair. Dual purpose for that title. I went to the fair yesterday, so there's that. And also, gerrymandering, voter suppression. Went to the fair, that's triple purpose. I'm not going to talk about gerrymandering or voter suppression on this show, I don't think. But I might. But no, I'm not going to this show. They'll be on another show. And I've talked about it before. What? Me worry? That's the alternate title. Second alternate title. That is because our illustrious President Donald Trump suggests that men, of which I am one, and I'm not going to prove it on the camera, men should be worried that women will be turning them into victims of charges of sexual harassment and destroying their lives with no evidence. Trump said young men should be worried about that. He said young men. Some pundit, and I don't remember who, suggested that old men, like me, are more vulnerable to potential charges, false, scurrilous charges of sexual harassment from vindictive, evil women, because we old guys have a longer history. I will add that history reaches back to when, that stuff was okay, or at least we thought so. Never was okay. Never was okay, but there was a time. We didn't think very much about it. So we old guys, we've got some history. You're thinking, who did I mess with? Could be that Kavanaugh really didn't remember. Could be. So he could have, when he came out there, instead of yelling and screaming and crying and wailing and gnashing teeth, he could have said, look, it's possible. I drank way too much. I blacked out. I did some terrible things when I was in high school and college. And I don't remember doing anything with Christine Blasey Ford. I really don't remember, but I admit it is possible. That's not who I am now. I'm not sure that's not who he is now. There's a whole lot of people who won't give him any kind of credit for it not being who he is now, but I think that would have been a better approach rather than blaming all the Democrats. Well, apparently not, because guess who's sitting on the Supreme Court now? Your vote matters. So vote early and vote often. You folks on the audio are missing how cleverly I'm just slicing through these titles here. Vote early and vote often. That is a reference to me having grown up in Chicago. Well, it's a reference to early voting, which starts today. You can go vote starting today. And because I'm from Chicago, in Chicago, that was our mantra: vote early and vote often. And actually, I was from suburban Chicago, and it was the era of Mayor Richard J. Daley. And that actually, for a suburbanite, even one that wasn't hard right Republican type, it made it hard to vote Democrat because scandal. I mean, if you lived in Chicago or around Chicago, you could be a Daley guy, but if you weren't, and the newspapers and the TV stations weren't, their goal, like it is still today, was to look at politics and figure out where the corruption was and who was doing things that they shouldn't do. And Chicago was a hotbed of corruption. Some great undercover articles that I recall from the newspapers. Some stings, some things that they did, typically building inspection and areas that are rife with payoffs and potential corruption. But it supposedly, I can't prove it, went up to the mayor's office. Aldermen were in deep trouble for things like that now and then, but most of them got away with it. So it was hard to be a Democrat unless you wanted to buy into that sort of stuff. So 1970 was the first election that I could have voted in. I had just turned 21, the birthday at the end of October. And so an election, and so 1969, no, let me do the math. 1970. No, I would have just turned 20. I couldn't have voted then. I'm looking at the stuff I prepared for myself. So, no, I would have just turned 20 in 1970. Never mind what I've gotten written here. It was an off-year election. Adlai Stevenson was running for the re-election to his Senate seat. It says here, if I voted, it was probably for him, but I couldn't have voted. So never mind. So the first election that I could have voted in was 1972. And I voted for a Republican, Chuck Percy, a Republican for Senate. Chuck Percy was a liberal Republican. That sort of thing did exist back at that time. I don't remember voting for president. I'm pretty sure I did. The election was between Nixon and Eugene McGovern. I'm pretty sure I didn't vote for Nixon. I'm pretty sure I did vote for McGovern. I just don't have any memory of it. I wasn't highly politically charged back then. I was drifting left after having been in the thrall, right? That's getting my grammar right. Having been in thrall of some ultra right-wing John Birchers as a teenager, I didn't really understand most of what they were preaching. You know what I remember the most about it? I remember in Southwest Michigan, when we drive from Chicago up the western side of the Lower Peninsula to a cottage a friend of mine had, and the John Birchers always had a billboard along the side of the interstate that said, "Impeach Earl Warren." Earl Warren was a Supreme Court justice. I think he was a Chief Justice. I had no idea who Earl Warren was. No idea what he was all about. Just, there were these guys, they would spout off about it, and I was around, and I vaguely remember it, but I really don't remember it. I do remember one college project, a political college project. I was going to a junior college in central Illinois, in Lincoln, Illinois, the only town to be named after Lincoln before he died. That's their claim to fame. Let me interrupt this for just a second. Do you know why that we still have a penny? I think this is true. I don't think this is urban mythology. Look it up. I think this is true. It's because Illinois won't approve getting rid of the penny. The penny's useless. We'd all be much better off if our coinage stopped at a nickel. But pennies are still around, and at least the conventional wisdom, as I recall it, being sort of a long-term Illinoisan, being Illinoising, I think that's why Illinois and Lincoln could be. Do it on Snopes. See what the deal is. Okay, so I was going to school in Lincoln, Illinois, and I guess I was taking a political science class or something. And for some reason, I was assigned to give a talk at a local high school about lowering the voting age to 18. At the time I started, it was 21. That was the 26th Amendment, and it eventually passed. not long after that. So the goal I vaguely remember was I was going to urge the kids to ask their parents to support the 26th Amendment. And I sort of remember asking if they thought that would work, and they all laughed. They didn't. Our parents don't listen to us. It would have all been very indirect anyway. You know, voters as individuals, we don't vote on constitutional amendments. There are 4 ways a constitutional amendment can be passed. They involve the U.S. Congress and the state legislatures. And no, even in this public service announcement of a program, I'm not going to go into the details on this. There is not going to be a quiz, but it probably will be on your final exam. Early voting starts today. I didn't vote today. I took a look at the sample ballot. I got this sample ballot from Ballotpedia. I'll spell that Ballot Pedia. Ballotpedia. And I got the sample ballot just to see what was going to be here. I gave them my address and then took a look at here in the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary. And they gave me what was going to be on the ballot for me in this precinct. Sometime in the past, I looked up the number of the precinct. I don't remember what it is. So there's going to be those amendments that we've talked about. That the News and Observer and the ACLU and a bunch of other folks say we'd be fine just voting no. Income tax cap, not a good idea. Ties the legislature's hands. The Marsy's Law, crime victims' rights, sounds like a great thing. And when I look at the arguments for and against that, I have a hard time being stalwartly against it, because there are some victims' rights already baked into North Carolina law, but this goes farther. And the main reasons not to do it are that it will cost some money, and it will tie up the courts doing I hesitate to call it busy work, the work of doing all that notification and making sure victims can come in and speak. It gives victims more of an opportunity to speak in court. So it does add work. And when you add work, you add people, you add money, you add time. So those aren't necessarily bad things. It's just a little bit hard to tell how valuable it would be. The big problem that I've got is it doesn't need to be an amendment. The legislature could do all of that and just make it part of the law. And then when they see what works and what doesn't and what is costing too much, they can tweak it. As an amendment, they can't. If they wanted to change an amendment, they'd have to go back to another ballot initiative. Hunting and fishing, that's just something to pull out the conservatives. It also just could be a law, not an amendment. The appointments to the election board, that is pure pulling power away from the governor and giving it to the legislature, which right now is pulling it from a Democratic governor and giving it to a Republican legislature. Kind of short-sighted. Don't know what the real arguments are, whether it's a good idea or not from a non-partisan point of view. There might be some reasons for it, but I don't see them now. The judicial selection for midterm vacancies, another pulling power away from the governor, giving it to the legislature. And by the way, both of those last two are opposed by every living former governor of North Carolina, Republican or Democrat. All of those guys say, not a good idea. Of course, they were governors. The voter ID amendment, well, that is a pure naked attempt by the legislature, the Republican legislature. Hang on a second, folks. Try to clear up the voice a little bit. It's not going to work. A attempt by the Republican legislature to restrict voting by people who would more likely than not vote Democrat, making it hard to vote. And by the way, that amendment says that it would require voters to present a photo ID to vote in person, but it gives no other details about what that might be. And the legislature would then get to fill in those gaps. And they've already been slapped down by the courts several times, so they're trying again. So those are the amendments. Here in District 4, the north side of Cary, voting for Congress, David Price is the incumbent, Steve Van Leur, Republican, and Barbara Howe, Libertarian. So those are I know who I'm going to vote for there. Senate District 16, Wiley Nickel is the Democrat. I'll be voting for him. Paul Smith is the Republican. This is a fairly safe, it's a new district, a new Senate district, out of the adjustments that they made because of gerrymandering. There'll be more coming. But this district was created and had no incumbent, so it'll be brand new. House of Representatives, Cynthia Ball is Democrat. She's the incumbent. David Robertson, the Republican. Jonathan Horst, Libertarian. So both the North Carolina Senate and North Carolina House in my area are fairly safe Democratic. In the U.S. Congress, David Price, also very safe district for Democrats because it's one of the three in North Carolina that was gerrymandered highly Democratic so that 10 could be gerrymandered highly Republican. And that was only because they couldn't figure out how to make it 11 Republican and 2 Democrat. You've heard that before, right? Wake County candidates for the Soil and Water Conservation District. You get to choose 2. Okay, so we're into the territory where I haven't got a clue. I don't know who these folks are. I don't know what their qualifications are. And neither do you, unless you're family or friends. Wake County Superior Court. Here we've started including whether a candidate is a Democrat or Republican. So if you're going to vote, party line, then that makes it pretty easy. Otherwise, you got some digging to do. Superior Court, don't know who they are. Sheriff, well, Donnie Harrison's been the sheriff for a long time, Republican. I've actually voted for him a bunch. Gerald Baker, Democrat. News and Observer had an editorial about voting. Well, it wasn't for sheriff. It was for the state house and state Senate. And they said that there are candidates who in the Republican Party that they would ordinarily have endorsed. I think this is their editorial yesterday. That they would have endorsed, but as things stand now, the way the legislature is going and the fact that they have a veto-proof supermajority, the News and Observer said they're going with Democrats across the board. This is taking longer than I wanted to. My point here is that there's a lot of folks that I don't know who they are. And so I'm going to do a little more research and see if I can come up with some idea, and then come up with maybe like a voter guide episode of the Triangle Talk Show. Look at there's a lot of people to vote for, not just 3 or 4 at the top of the ticket. There's a lot. School, board, in several districts, and I guess I get to vote for several districts worth of school board. I don't know how that works. I think I might have known at one point. Don't know. Don't know how it works anymore. So the News and Observer does have some editorials that they made some endorsements so far, and they'll probably make some more endorsements. This that I'm showing on the screen is the editorial to vote for Linda Coleman in the 2nd District for U.S. Congress, east side of the triangle, and she's going up against George Holding. But this is the article that's the link. This is the article that basically says vote across the board for Democrats. So, trying to figure out what I got here. Oh, Indy Week has made a lot of endorsements. I think their endorsements are probably pretty much done. Endorsements 2018, the midterms are our last best hope to save the republic. Their editor, Jeffrey Billman, says Donald Trump's name will not be on the ballot, but Donald Trump very much will be. This newspaper's opposition to and outright contempt for Trump and the politics he represents isn't a secret. Over the past 22 months, Trump has shown himself time and time again to be a cancer infecting the body politic, et cetera, et cetera. That's their start, and then they go on to list a lot of candidates that they endorse, that they recommend. It doesn't get all the way to the bottom of what I will find and what you will find on your sample ballot or your real ballot, but you'll find a lot. All right. Maybe a voting guide if I can get time to put that together before we run out of time. Now, proving that life moves on after Kavanaugh, because remember him, and maybe just a little too quickly, the state fair is happening this week. And now I need to pull out a little more sound, and I don't have it ready. And let me get my sound thing going here. Got it nearby. Well, I've got the roosters. You've heard that. And here's something else that sounds like the fair.
The Museum of World Oddities is the strangest and most bizarre collection of human and animal oddities in the world today.
I don't know how much I can play of that. It's because it could be copyrighted. I just, stood outside. This is what, back in the day, we would have called the freak show.
You are about to see some of the strangest people that have ever lived.
We can't call it that anymore. And it wasn't nice then, would be very not nice now.
Incredible mummy child and the weird wolf boy. You will also see a two-headed lamb, a two-headed calf, and a two-headed raccoon.
So there are two of those at the fair that I saw, and they both had a special going. You could go in and see for $1 the two-headed calf and cow and chicken and the world's smallest monkey.
These are just a few of the many attractions that you are about to see.
I don't know if I've ever gone into one of those.
And start your journey into the world of the strange, the unusual, and the bizarre.
So, yeah, the world of the strange, the unusual, and the bizarre. And I'm trying to get my cursor back over here. As that's not the first picture. There's the first picture. Fair parking, $10. This is a sign on one of the parking lots that's just down Hillsborough Street from the entrance to the fair. So I got a little bit of a walk from this spot at $10. The thing I noticed as I was getting these pictures ready was that this fair parking $10 sign, the 10 is pasted on. When they originally made the sign, I'm guessing it goes back to the $5 or even the $4 era. And then as prices went up, they just had to keep covering that part up. So now it's $10. If you get a little closer, right across from one of the entrances along Hillsborough Street, you're going to pay $20 for the privilege of not walking very far. I have a secret. I'm debating telling you about that secret. There are a few small arterial streets that approach the fair a little bit farther to walk, but on weekdays at least typically have on-street parking and plenty available because there's not a lot of residences on those streets. And that'll be as far as I'm going to go. I will give you a clue if you're going to try to get past the fair area. Even Wade Avenue, the expressway section of Wade Avenue, can get clogged up. Hillsborough Street's always a mess. Go down to Western Avenue and go across Western. And that is usually not too backed up. And then for parking, again, there's a couple of streets that approach the area of the fair that have on-street parking. On the weekends, after by about 11 o'clock, those are probably going to be full too, but they're free. So take out your map, look at Google. If I were to tell you what street I'm talking about and what two streets I'm talking about, the people who know to park there would come after me. They'll be very upset. When I first moved to Raleigh, I lived just a few blocks away from the fair. So I've been going to the fair since the first year I was here in 1990. I think I might have missed 1 or 2 years. I go because I have fun. It's an eating experience. Sometimes a bunch of friends go. Sometimes it's just me. Since I was I'm retired and I could go on my own, I get in for free. I got a picture on that. Yesterday I went by myself, but and Cindy doesn't want to go because of the temptation to eat way too much. And we call this the beginning of eating season. The fair, my birthday, her dad's birthday, Thanksgiving, another friend's birthday, Christmas, New Year's. Eating season lasts until Super Bowl, I think. And obviously not every day. We're not stuffing ourselves every day, but just a little too often and a little too much. Okay, so $20 to park. Oh, that sign has been modified from its original as well to put on a paste-on price. There's the 65 and older get admitted free every day, 5 and under. So if you're 5 and under, you probably, first of all, not listening to the show and probably not going by yourself. But us old timers, we get in free. I was looking forward to getting ID'd the first time I went in as a senior. The fair usually crosses my birthday. Doesn't this year. It ends just before my birthday, but usually my birthday is included within the fair week. And so on my 65th birthday, I went knowing I'd be able to get in free, but wanting a fuss to be made when they said, if you're going in free as a senior, we need to see your driver's license. And I would show them in today's date. They didn't ask. This time they asked. Well, they sort of asked. They said, got your ticket? I said, old timer. Oh, okay, go on in. If you look old, I guess, even if you're 64, 63, if you got a few wrinkles or something, you're looking a little bit ragged, you probably get in free. They're not checking IDs. At least they didn't. They've never checked IDs since I've been going in for free. This is not new this year, but it's fairly new. A sign that says, under North Carolina law, a farm animal activity sponsor or professional is not liable for injury or death to a participant in farm animal activities, resulting exclusively from the inherent risks of those activities. That's like, being bit, stomped on, maybe got sick, poisoned by some nasty stuff, germs or whatever. They're not liable. Otherwise, the fair would close because there'd be, at least the animal part of it, there'd be no way to do that. These are the guys building stuff. This picture, they're building a wall. You know, the carpenters and electricians and stuff. There's competitions for that. I've always seen the finished product, but I've never seen them actually doing it. Never gotten to the fair early enough. Apparently, they do it early on. There was a unit from the driver's license from DMV. They were actually doing driver's license stuff in there. And if you happen to have carried your birth certificate, social security card, proof of residence, then you could get your real ID right there. And if you're going to the fair, then you can get your real ID. This is right next to the Dorton Arena. You can see over there on the right-hand picture, for those of you in the audio audience, they had a line of about 15 or 20 people there. And a guy who would go over your documents just in case you wanted to. More likely, people would get just a renewal without the real ID or some other work taken care of, because you wouldn't have those documents. But if you're going now, if you're thinking about it, well, first of all, don't do it at the fair. Just go to the Cary DMV office. It'll be empty. But if you're going to the fair, then you can get it taken care of at this DMV thing. Again, it's on the side of the Dorton Arena. So this magician, they got some just sort of random walking around street performer entertainment. So this magician had gotten a crowd around him, and he was doing the cut a dollar bill into small pieces, and then he will put it back together with a signature of somebody on it. I have no idea how they do that. And a little kid who was going to help him out. Everyone is having a good time. This picture we're looking at, this is the beginning of what I call stupid food. I'm not sure exactly when this started. It was a few years ago. The idea of, first of all, deep frying strange things. So here they've got, and this is the 1853 Fairgrounds Grill. Deep fried Reese's wrapped with bacon. Deep fried, everything is deep fried. Red velvet Oreos. Big butt fries. Both pulled pork barbecue sauce. More deep fried Oreos, deep fried mac and cheese. Red velvet funnel cake. And then the thing that has become the thing, a Krispy Kreme burger. I think that there was a Krispy Kreme with hot sauce on it or something that was supposed to be a big deal at the fair. I looked around. I didn't remember exactly what it was. I also didn't find it. Some more deep fried candy bars, deep fried Oreos, and I guess that's it. That's it for the stupid food. And here's the real food. This is my lunch. This is from Charlie Barefoot's. There's a bunch of these places that do this. This is a Polish sausage with the works and a Diet Pepsi. Yum. Part of my eating season. This is something fairly new. It's probably around last year. I don't remember. A hand washing station. And these were set up not everywhere, but frequently around the fair. The idea being we want to keep people alive, and there's dangerous stuff you can touch, animals and stuff. Plus, if you get one of these Polish sausages or Italian sausage or something, and you put mustard on it, it's going to drip all over you. Your hands are going to be a mess. So I was appreciative of the hand washing station. This is one of my favorite things. This episode of the Triangle Talk Show is brought to you by the Gingerbread House at the State Fair. They have gotten crowded. They didn't used to have any neighbors around them, and now they do. Although this looks kind of elaborate, they don't move it in for the fair, move it back out. It's a traveling food show. This is what I get. It is a huge, humongous football size chocolate eclair. They got a bunch of other stuff. I've tried some of the other stuff. This is my favorite. The and I actually got two of them. It's the sign said, I don't know if we can see the sign. I don't see it in that picture. It was one for $5 or two for $9, and I got two and they charged me $8. Maybe I got a senior discount, but they were huge and they are delicious. This picture is the information booth. There were a bunch of these around the fair. You could get your questions answered and things like that. The reason that I took the picture is because of the sign, the name of, well, I don't know what it's the name of. Maybe it's the name of the provider of the booth. It is SUKUP. SUKUP. The only way I could think of to pronounce that is suck up. It probably isn't, but that's the only way I could think to pronounce it. Suck up. It's probably not it. This is the booth for food vendor, Al's Fries, Al's French Fries. And the reason I took this picture and put it in this show is for my wife, Cindy, who doesn't watch the show and doesn't listen to it. But I'll put it in here anyway because she loves Al's Fries. We used to volunteer with the Red Cross doing communications for them. If you've been to the fair for a long time, you remember the old big Red Cross building. It was just across from the Holzhauser building, just across kitty corner from the Dorton Arena. And the Red Cross was in there. They had a first aid center. And they had teams that they'd send out around the fairgrounds. If they had a report of an injury. And to communicate with the teams, they used their radio system. They had some walkie-talkies. But because they didn't want to use Red Cross first aid people to be the dispatchers because they don't have that many of them and be better off having them available taking care of people in first aid, they worked with a local ham radio club to provide the radio dispatchers. So we came up with enough ham radio guys to fill 3 shifts a day with 2 operators. That's a lot of people. And I did as many of those as I could. Cindy did them. And Al's Fries was just across the aisle from the old Red Cross building. That building was falling apart. The last couple of years, only part of the building was usable. Part of it had kind of caved in. And then they finally demolished it and built what is sitting there now, which is the Expo Center, and then built some new buildings. And the Red Cross is now up in the Jim Martin building on the other side of the fairgrounds. We helped them out for 1 year up there. And then the state put in the new 2-way radio system, what they call the Viper system. And they let the Red Cross use that. And they don't need dispatchers. And we're out of a job. Out of a free ticket to the fair. That was our pay, a free ticket to the fair. So Cindy would duck out of her volunteer job in that old Red Cross building and pick up some Al's Fries. And just to make sure that I didn't eat any of her fries, she put malt vinegar on them. Malt vinegar is... well, it tastes terrible, according to me. I was trying to make my Southern bona fides valid by talking about drinking sweet tea once I got down here and wondering why anyone would drink unsweet tea and also wondering how they get the sugar out to make the unsweet tea. And now I suppose I'm screwing that up by claiming that malt vinegar on fries is poison, I think. I don't know if that's a Southern thing. I really don't know. But she likes it, and to make sure I don't eat her fries, she just covers them with that stuff. Okay, this one I've got some sound to go with this here. What we're looking at is a line of people, probably 15, 20 people deep, waiting to get food at one vendor. And they are surrounded by vendors of food. that have no line. And so I actually did an interview to find out what was going on.
Yes.
Oh, you're welcome. I'd love to do that. So you're in line for something.
Yes.
Looks like about 10 minutes or so. Mm-hmm. What's the line for?
Jerk chicken.
Now, there's food all over the place you could walk right up to. What's the deal?
Vimo, the guy I'm with, who works with me, said that the jerk chicken is the best, so I'm waiting for it.
Okay, so you haven't had it.
No, but Vimo has.
But you've had this jerk chicken. It's from Cool Runnings.
Cool Runnings.
It's
Jamaican. It's the best.
Worth standing in line for 10 minutes here.
They won the best new food at the fair.
And you could go get a corn dog or an Italian sausage over there in 30 seconds.
Yeah, this is well worth it. I had it already on Saturday. It's worth every penny.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good one.
All right, so apparently if you're going to the fair and you want something better than average fair food, all fair food is good. None of it's good for you. There's a Neomond booth there. I'm not really familiar with them, but I think that they make food that is good for you, I think. But you may see an extra big line on the weekends, and in the evenings, there's lines for everything. But this was at like 11 o'clock in the morning. So popular. I didn't wait for that food. Maybe I should have. Let's see. Here's what I got. This is hot Wisconsin cheese, cheddar nuggets, mozzarella fingers. This is another one of our staples. This is pretty expensive. What you're in the foreground of that picture, a little bit out of focus, is a basket of cheddar nuggets. That'd be my favorite. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, maybe 8 or 9 of them. It was $9. So about $1 a piece for those things, and you pop them in your mouth, and ooh, they are good. They go quick. And as I always say, is there one thing that we could do with cheese to make it just a little bit worse for us, a little more artery clogging? Oh yeah, let's deep fry it. That'll kill us. So that's my favorite. I'm not promoting these as things you should do necessarily. You may have your favorites. Just, this is what I do. So this portion of the Triangle Talk Show is brought to you by Hot Wisconsin Cheese. This, on the other hand, is the best deal of food at the fair. The Peanut Factory. You can see the Dorton Arena in the background. It's up on the eastern side as you walk around the midway. Hot, fresh roasted peanuts from the Peanut Factory. And can I zoom in enough to read the price? A 1-pound bag for $3, a 2-pound bag for $5. So that's pretty cheap. And I don't think that price has gone up a lot lately. And a 1-pound bag will have you eating peanuts for a long time as you wander around the fair. And of course, the best part is you can just toss the shells on the ground. Don't have to find a trash can for them because you're outdoors. Nobody cares. Although I don't see a lot of peanut shells sitting on the ground around there. Okay, I eat the peanuts and toss the shells on the ground. Maybe you're not supposed to. I don't know. Got anything else? Oh yeah. Walking through the Car Scott building, saw this guy from Channel 17 getting ready to record something. In fact, I think he was in the middle of recording something. I was looking to see if his name was on his media credentials, but it's not. He's just number 0621 and a barcode. I don't know who he is. One of their reporters, I guess. I forget exactly what he was saying. It was some kind of amped up state fair pitch thing. And then in the commercial exhibits building, there was this. This is a giant blue robot thing with it walked around. I'm assuming there's a human inside of it. I don't know for sure. Be pretty impressive if it was totally remote control robot. Talking to kids, got a big crowd around him. A little political stuff, not a lot. There's a little political stuff. This picture is the North Carolina Right to Life, the anti-abortion folks. You've heard, if you'd listened to my job interview segment, you heard my take on abortion. I think I'm not a big abortion fan. I don't think that it's the preferred method of birth control, but if a woman finds herself pregnant, it's her body, and she gets to decide what to do with it. I consider it to be rights in conflict. I think that the unborn child has some rights. The woman has some rights in the first, 2/3 of the pregnancy. The woman's rights override the child's in the second half or the last third trimester. Child's rights start to become predominant. If a woman has not decided, I'll put my face up here and own these comments. If a woman has not decided it's time to terminate that pregnancy by that point, they're kind of made an obligation with all kinds of caveats about health coming into it. That, if something starts to go wrong and anyone's health is jeopardized, well, obviously we can take care of that. She can get an abortion. And I think that's pretty much what the Roe v. Wade deal is for now. Remember, Kavanaugh got appointed to the Supreme Court. Let's see what happens. Don't think it will be good. Kind of worried about that. Anyway, those guys were there. These guys, the Sons of Confederate Veterans, big sign there on the front, save our memorials, join the fight. Got an idea what they're all about. Oh, they got their own license plate. And they were giving out these stickers with the Confederate flag on them. Because, it's our heritage, it's our grandparents. It's my great-great-grandpappy fought in the Civil War. I have respect for him. He didn't own any slaves. Let's see. The Democrats were there. I didn't see a booth for the North Carolina Republicans, but I did for the Democrats. And now you were thinking about that eclair and wondering how big was it really? Well, this picture, I'm going to put these pictures on the Triangle Talk Show website, triangletalkshow.com. Not the Triangle Talk Show, just triangletalkshow.com. Or you could also spell it out, triangletalkshow.com. And this is me about to stuff almost the whole eclair. Well, that's what it looks like into my mouth at once. And if you're wondering what, do they do a good job on the inside, or is it just kind of mostly air? Here's the inside. Lots of custard. They do a good job. Lots of custard. I appear to be done. Get back to my control program here. And so we didn't do, well, we did the vote early, vote often. We did the What Me Worry. We did the State Fair. And we started out with the I'm Me for Real, episode 32. This has been our public service announcement. The fair, the voter, the real ID, all the stuff you need to know to be a good citizen here in North Carolina. Episode 32, October 17th, 2018. I'm Gary Pierce. Goodbye, everybody. Over and out.